And as you know, Inspiration is a bite-sized learning experience where we learn from each other with the hope of uplifting each other and to kind of take Sri Lanka to that global stage that we can mark Sri Lanka on the map, right, in terms of advertising and marketing. So today's session is very special because it's actually on a subject that is spoken about throughout the world in different scales. But we have somebody who has hands-on experience, who has actually gone on to work on a brand like Dove that is known for its footprint on the world in terms of brand purpose, right? So we have Munazza Rafeek. She is the Senior Brand Manager for Mass Fabric Cleaning from Unilever Sri Lanka. Munazza, welcome. So she has been doing this for a while. She has been handling brands like Close Up. She launched Resume in Sri Lanka. She has handled brands like Sunsilk, Dove, and is now handling a very iconic Sri Lankan brand, which is Sunlight, which is also known for its purpose-driven marketing abilities. So I don't think I should go on because I need to make time for Munazza to really talk to you guys, and hopefully you will have many questions for us in the end. So all the best, Munazza. Over to you.
Thanks, Kav. Thank you so much. And thanks, guys, for all of you for connecting. Wasn't expecting the turnout. Thank you. I must add before I start that I do hope because we've been having a couple of really great sessions that Kavi was also talking about. And all of these sessions, like all the recordings, are actually there in our YouTube link. So whenever you do get the time, whenever you're free, just head out and, just listen to a couple, because I've missed some and I've then gone and checked it out. And some are refreshers, some are completely new, thought-provoking insights that you can learn from. So really do get a chance and, go through. So let me just start my video. Oh, it's my document. Might have to move off video because there are a couple of videos that I want to show. I've not been having the best of internet. All right, guys. So let's try to make this interactive as much as possible. So if you have a question in between, you can always please do, sort of ask, shout out and ask, because I might not see the raised hands because I'm off the main screen. And if I do sort of ask a point of view, please let me know as well, because that would be really helpful. And, it'll not be just a one-way sort of communication. All right, so as Kavi said, so this topic in terms of brand purpose. Now, when Kavi was asking all of us in the team, what do you want to talk about and what do you want to kind of, educate and tell people on? I chose this because this is something that I thought, personally to me also, it's something that I'm also still learning. I'm reading up, I'm learning, and as brand managers, we are, evolving in terms of how we can better our brand purpose and what when we say, what do we do, etc. Right? So this next 20 to 30 minutes, what I will do is I will sort of take you through some things that I've been inspired by when I have done my readings on it. Yeah, so for some of you, it might be a complete refresher because as Kav said, almost all of us have now sort of ventured into this understanding of what brand purpose is and how it sort of helps our brands. And for some, it might be completely, thought-provoking and new, but, for whichever the groups you all belong to, I really hope that you do get some inspiration and some sort of nugget of this deck today. Yeah. So before I start, I have to add, the disclaimer that all of this information that I'm sharing now are either publicly shared facts or it's my personal opinion. So there's no sensitive information whatsoever that's being shared. I have also avoided, it's not an avoidment, actually. We're meant to not share anything that we are presenting or where we've applied for FEs this year as a company. So that's something that we've been told as committee members, so none of those. So there won't be any recent examples of that sort, but let's discuss and let's see if there are any questions that come up. Yeah. So starting on, before I move on to purpose, starting on in terms of, what a brand is and which all of us already now know. We know the fact that basically a brand, end of the day, is a memory. And as brand custodians, whether you are in a company like, or whether you're working for a media agency or an advertising agency, end of the day, as brand custodians, all of us are brand custodians. As brand custodians, what we need to do, what our key job is, that we need to constantly refresh this memory that our consumers have on the brand. Yeah, because it's basically all of these experiences put together as to why the consumers choose the brand. Whether, for example, in the case of Ben & Jerry's, whether it's the rich, creamy taste of the ice cream in terms of the product, or whether the way they communicate it, in this whole fun, quirky attitude that they communicate the brand. It's all of this that puts together that really builds the brand's memory and ensures that, the brand builds in terms of its equity. Now, one key way that a brand can sort of build on the memory and improve on the memory is in terms of building on the brand's purpose. And we will discuss why as we move along this presentation in terms of how and why this helps improve our memory structure, improve the brand's memory structure, right? Like, for example, in the case of Ben & Jerry's, Ben & Jerry's has always stood out as a brand that is very passionate in terms of, really communicating some form of a societal issue, whether it's climate change or whether it's supporting gay marriages. It's always sort of connected to some form of societal issue and through that. And so it's not just about the ice cream, really. It's about how they communicate that purpose and sort of to understand what and how these brands define our purpose, which I will go to from a theoretical point of view. I'd first like to show a small video on SERP, and then I will go and tell you guys, okay, what we feel or how we define purpose. And then let's also discuss what you feel, what, purpose is. Yeah. Just tell me if sounds don't play. I checked this before, so I hope it does.
Can't hear, Munz.
Can't hear.
I can hear.
All right.
Come on.
वाह मेरा कुत्ता ये तो बड़ा अच्छा लग रहा है थैंक यू
गरम समोसे जलेबी गरम अरे क्या कर रहे हो आज मेरी पेशानी पे किस्मत ने चूमा है आज मेरी पेशानी पे किस्मत ने चूमा है माँ है मुक़द्दस में रोशन जहाँ है माँ है मुक़द्दस में रोशन जहाँ है जलेबी नहीं है ना फरिश्तों ने आकर किया समा खुशनुमा है आज मेरी
बाकी इज्जत इन प्यारे बच्चों के लिए है
चूमा है आज मेरी पेशानी पे किस्मत ने चूमा है आज मेरी
किसी की मदद करना भी एक इबादत है और मदद करने में अगर दाग लग जाए तो दाग तो अच्छे हैं। इस रमजान आप भी अपने बच्चों को मदद करने की तरगीब दें। लॉग ऑन टू surfexcel.pk.
So guys, by seeing that asset, what do you all think? Can I like get a couple of, people sort of telling me what do they think? What is a brand's purpose? What is purpose for the brand? It can be right, it can be wrong, just so that we create a sort of a discussion. Anyone?
Sri Lankans are not known to voice out their thoughts unless it's on social media and you can't be seen. So, all right. So my take on brand purpose is that it needs to start off with a we exist to and then do what, right? So it needs to address whatever, if not for the brand, then what would people be missing? And but I'm coming from the Unilever School of Marketing, so I guess it's what we've been taught to kind of think of. So I'll let somebody else also say it.
Yeah. Thanks, Gav. Anyone? All right. So just okay. Sorry, someone's going to say something.
No, I said let's move on. I don't think anybody's replying.
Exactly. Yeah. So, so just building on what basically Kavi said, right? But I will tell you why it's not only Unilever School of Thought, though, because I was reading up on this for this presentation, and so many companies have also kind of, while the words may not be the same, it's basically along the very same lines on how they want to drive purpose. But just first saying, obviously, on how Unilever puts it out. So Unilever as a company, we have this purpose of where we want to be, where we say that sustainable, we want to make sustainable living a commonplace. And one key way that we want to do that, and one key way that we've identified that we need to do that, is that we need to ensure that we sort of do this through powering up the purpose of our brands. And how we sort of power up this purpose of our brands, and how do we connect it in basically what we mean, or what we sort of define is a brand's purpose, is first of all, this purpose has to be relevant to what your brand is, or what your brand has been communicating, or basically has to be aligned to the category that it operates in, right? Like it can't be, and the second thing is where it has to be connected to an environmental or a social cause. Yeah. Like, for example, in the case of, Ben & Jerry's, on where they have the whole activism of climate change. And that is why even our CEO mentions that it's not about really putting purpose ahead of profit. So it's not like a one-off CSR activity type of thing that we would do. Because he clearly states that, this was mentioned in a forum that he had gone for in 2019, where he says it's not about putting purpose ahead of profits, it's purpose that drives profits. And it's because of that I first said that, whatever the societal or the environmental cause that you select for your brand has to definitely be linked to what the brand has always been communicating, or what the category that the brand operates. Like, for example, in terms of Surf Excel has consistently always been communicating as a brand that it stands for, children sort of developing whilst getting dirty. Like, very in short, what Surf says is that dirt is good. And you don't have to, and they connect it to the product, saying, no, you don't have to worry about the dirt, because Surf Excel is there to take care of all those stains. So that is why it's very important on, on when you define what your purpose is. Okay, so you have your environmental or social cause. That will then motivate people when you're communicating a purpose, but to also have a, give back to your brand, it has to always ensure that it's aligned to what your brand is, or what your brand stands for, right? For example, so this is, a case study that everyone, knows. It has been discussed and communicated for decades, but just very simply, because everyone knows about this, I thought I will sort of highlight this back. So Dove, I think if you read anywhere, if you read through any case study, we always talk on from that Dove as a brand has always spoken on, ensuring that beauty is not an anxiety, but beauty sort of helps give a source of confidence for girls. And this is not just, a beautiful asset that Dove puts out. They always connect it to the product offerings that, Dove as a brand gives to the consumers. For example, in the hair category, which is what I handled in terms of Dove shampoo, we said that, look, you can go and do anything that you want with your hair, because Dove is there to take care of the damage. So say you want to, include that little blue streak of on your hair, you want to play with it in completely different ways. It's okay, you go play with it, because Dove is there to take care of the damage. So that is a simple way in terms of how we sort of connected our purpose, which was connected to the societal issue that, girls face in terms of being less confident about themselves, and connected it to our brand, saying that, look, our brand has always given these good quality products that helps improve how you look, how you feel. And this is the benefit that it gives basically to the girls as well as to the brand. And why I say that this is not just, a Unilever who says it, I'm sure a lot of brands say this. I just want to give some examples for the purpose of this presentation. When I was reading up, there was an article I was reading in terms of from P&G. So where the chief brand officer there has mentioned on how even in P&G, they want to be powered by purpose. Just reading off the quote first, and then I will sort of give some examples that he had that was mentioned in that article as well, where they say that P&G wants to be a force for good and a force for growth. You have to do both. You can't do one or the other. If you're just a force for good, then you're philanthropy. If you're just a force for growth, then it might be mercenary. But when you do both, it's basically sustainable. So, it was interesting because when I was reading this up, everything connects. It's the same thing that even Alan mentioned, right? In the previous quote that I said, that it's not about putting purpose ahead of profits. It's about how you it's about how you, through purpose, you also drive your profits for the company and for your brand. Right. So even in P&G, so even in that article that I read, it very clearly mentioned how the company sort of looks into some form of a concern in the society or in the environment. They had called it their citizenship areas. So these could be a community impacted concern, maybe something on diversity, gender equality, etc. And how they had used their brand, which was connected, a brand of theirs, which was connected to one of those citizenship areas, and then driven growth for the brand, right? An example that they had put out was with the brand, with the sanitary napkin brand Always, how in a couple of countries, they really want to drive this whole ending of period poverty. And a key action that they do is that with every purchase of an Always pack, there is a sanitary napkin that they donate to girls who are unable to purchase this. Because it was clearly identified that how 1 in 7 girls, particularly in Canada, have missed school because of the lack of proper period protection. It's really nice to see that even from a local point of view in Sri Lanka, I think the local brand FEMS, how they had launched the initiative of FEMS Aya. I was reading up on how there was a particular sanitary napkin pack that was launched, which I think was economical yet really good quality sanitary napkins, such that any person can, at least majority of people can then afford to purchase that pack. Because even in Sri Lanka, there was a stat there that I was reading that said that the monthly penetration of sanitary napkins was just 30%. It's just amazing, how when brands truly sort of connect to that proper social or environmental cause that's connected to the brand, connected to the brand in terms of the brand's product truth or what the brand's been communicating, the great things that can be really done to improve the society at large. Yeah. Another local example I liked, and I think it's fine me sharing because it's a recent example, but it's not a Unilever example, so therefore I wouldn't know if it was applied or not. But this is something that I really liked personally. It was a campaign that Manchi recently had released, I think sometime last year, or maybe just before that. I'm sorry, I'm not sure of the exact time period. On where, actually, let's first show the ad and then we'll discuss.
ළමයි ඩෙංගු බෝ වෙන තැන අපි විනාශ කළේ නැත්නම් හානි වෙන්නේ අපිටමයි. මංචි ටිකිරි මාරි කොහොමද ටිකිරි මොලේ?
I really like this ad personally because, you know, Manchi has always, for the longest time, you know, you really remember that line of Kohomada Tikiri Mole. The product truth of Manchi has always been in terms of the vitamin A's and D that Manchi has, helping to spark a young child's brain development, and then how they use that and connected it to a societal / environmental cause that we see today. And sort of really communicated it in a beautiful manner. Yeah. So there's another example before I go back once to theory in terms of why purpose is important, which I will show because this was a recent example that Surf Excel did at the just as the COVID outbreak happened last year.
पापा क्या बचपन में खेलते थे क्या?
खेलते थे ना, बहुत सारे गेम्स खेलते थे हम लोग।
अब नहीं?
अब तो सब बड़े हो गए, दोस्तों से मिलना बंद हो गया, खेलना भी बंद।
मेरा भी सेम टू सेम, दोस्तों से मिलना बंद तो खेलना भी बंद। अब तो लगता है मैं भी बड़ा हो गया।
छुपी छुपी मुस्कुराहट
दिल के उन्हें ढूंढना।
इन दोस्तों के साथ तो खेलना अलाउड है ना?
दोस्ती को मारे धप्पा, बचपन जरा और रुक जा।
दोस्ती को मारे धप्पा, बचपन जरा और रुक जा।
अगर बच्चों को बचपन लौटाने में दाग लग जाए तो दाग अच्छे हैं। सर्फ एक्सेल, दाग अच्छे हैं।
Yeah. And then in Sri Lanka, we did something digitally last year as well, on where we said, you know, because over 5 million children were in lockdown and because learning development was restricted, how we sort of, you know, really inspired by Surf Excel's purpose, we said, you know, you can continue to learn at home and you can continue to have stains at home. Simple approaches, but really sort of connecting the brand's purpose and connecting with the brand as much as possible. So what is the benefit? How does this, how has this helped? This was numbers that was sort of put out in back around 2019 from a Unilever point of view, where it was released that our brands that were driving purpose, there were about 29 brands that at that time that were called out, and that was actually brands that sort of helped deliver majority of the growth incremental for the company that year. And why? It's because it really helps to, you know, add value to the lives of consumers. It helps add values of society. It helps set your brand apart from your competition, and it really provides clarity and in terms of how the brand is communicated. Yeah. Sort of touch basing in terms of what purpose helps create for the brand. One thing, first and foremost, is that it drives noticeability of the brand. And why I'm saying this is, I think Chamindri touched based on this in her presentation when she did the basics of marketing or branding, where she explained in terms of how the human brain is wired mostly as a system one, 95% of the time, basically, because we are emotional, intuitive. So most of the decisions are actually system one based decisions. And when you see almost all these purpose communications examples that I showed you as well, they sort of drive some form of powerful emotional response, whether it's evoking your emotion of sadness or happiness or anger or some form of emotion that really sort of grabs your attention then and there. And that is why the first thing that it really helps create is in terms of really driving noticeability. And of course, once you've driven your noticeability, if you've been consistent in terms of the, consistent in terms of the brand codes that you have been driving throughout the years, and you're communicating on that angle, it also continues to refresh your memory and therefore builds your brand memorability and your relevance. At the end of the day, all of this is basically what sort of, helps in terms of your biggest driver for your growth, which is really helping on recruiting more people into your brand or your category, and thereby helping to grow the brand. Right. So in very easy to reference short context, this is what purpose helps create. But this is why I keep reiterating that it's so important that when you're driving your brand's purpose, you have to, whilst you have that societal or environmental issue that motivates, you have to sort of connect it with your brand, what it has been communicating. For example, I'll show you helmets.
I got nothing to eat.
Nothing.
Nothing. Nothing.
Nothing.
Hold on, I can do something. Turning nothing into something.
Turning nothing into something.
I turn nothing into something.
It's amazing what you can do with nothing. And the little helmets make taste, not waste.
Yeah. So Hellmann's has always been on that side of food, but what they've realized the recent years is that a lot of food waste is taking place in homes, and that's by the purely having those leftover food being thrown away. So what they're saying is, look, you don't throw away that leftover food, use up a Hellmann's mayonnaise, whip it up, and you can create something new. So it's sort of tackling the issue of food waste, but it's also obviously ensuring that the brand grows on its own as well. Yeah, because you're consuming and you're recruiting more people to use Hellmann's. This is another example, which I'm sure a lot of you have seen this communication, but let me just show this because there's something that I want to say here.
Sorry. Come on. Yeah, that's me. Yeah. Yeah, go on.
A talk about chocolate, please. It's for my mum.
Your change.
Happy birthday, Mum.
There's a glass and a half in everyone.
Yeah, so when all the other confectionery brands were communicating very fun, very quirky communications. In fact, if I'm not mistaken, even Cadbury did before they started this campaign. Cadbury chose to sort of go back to the brand roots that it's always been consistently communicating, and that's the fact that the spirit of generosity. So when the cultural backdrop of how people operate now is where you have a world where a lot of people are quite selfish unfortunately in some cases, Cadbury chose to show that look, not everyone is that, and there is this whole generosity that exists in the world. There are people who are kind-hearted, and it was really nice how they also kind of refreshed their product truth in terms of that every Cadbury bar has a glass and a half of milk, twisted it to connecting onto the campaign where they said there's a glass and a half in everyone. So in a very emotive twist of bringing this campaign to life. So as all of these have predominantly been, except for the example on always communications that I've shown, I think something that we need to also remember is that this brand purpose should be rooted throughout the entire mix. It's not just a one-off communication that we sort of put on air and that's about it. As much as possible, we need to really try to connect on elements of where we can bring it throughout each of the elements of our mix. So just going back to the Cadbury example, in a couple of countries, so in UK, post that release of that campaign, they had released, they had done a Donate Your Words campaign, where the bar of Cadbury's, a couple of limited edition bars of Cadbury's did not have any of the content on it except for that slogan of the glass and a half of milk. And what they said was, with each purchase of that, there was a particular component going to a charity organization. Then, sorry, I can't remember the country. I think it was Philippines, where they launched a generosity bar. So in that, again, a limited edition bar, where instead of the usual quantity of milk, they had said that, look, this is a lower quantity of milk that is being used in this bar, but that's because the profits through this, the proceeds through this will basically go for, again, some form of a charity association that they had. Then in terms of Lifebuoy, so Lifebuoy has always been speaking on hygiene and really safety. So last year, this year, across all countries, including I'll give the example of in Sri Lanka, what we did, there was a massive investment that was done to ensure that the nation, as much as possible, was protected from COVID. We started off by, communicating that, look, you can use any sort of bar of soap or hand wash. You just need to ensure that you clean it properly so that you're free of germs. We set up over 100 cleaning, washing stations across key public areas. Just to sort of give a view in terms of how you have to connect your purpose to the product, to the activational elements that you would do as well. Then on Dove Men, so this is a campaign that they've done in US and Canada, if I recall, on where in those countries, across most countries, I think even in us, you don't really get paid paternity leave as much, but how Dove Men as a brand is championing, saying that, look, is championing the whole sort of an activational point of view and then communicating how we should champion dads to get paternity leave. And for those who still can't, they were also sort of having this pledge where they were getting a donation sort of collected to give people who really sort of need funds to look after their newborns.
I couldn't really comprehend me being a parent, me being a dad. How's that gonna be?
Dear future dads.
Αγαπητοί μελλοντικοί πατέρες, querido futuro papai.
Children, as they're coming into the world, they need that time with both their parents. I remember when she came out, felt like time stopped, and she just started like looking around.
It was exciting and scary.
Do whatever you can to take time off. You're never going to regret it. You're never going to get it back.
There's a lot of great bonding that happens in those first couple of weeks and months.
I knew I just had to be there. I had to be there no matter what.
First time your kid runs at you from daycare and they're like, daddy, daddy, daddy. It's like, I'm a pothole. You own, man.
When my daughter tells me I'm her best friend, that's the best part. I'm her best friend.
When my kid just walks up to me and hugs me for no reason, I never felt that in my life until I had him, you know, so it's nice. I might need a second, I'm sorry.
Yeah, so just 2 more videos. This is basically a summary in terms of really why Unilever drives brand purpose. And then I just have a small ending note. I will just show and then we can rush off quickly to questions. So just to reiterate and summarize again, guys, purpose, at least how we put it, is basically when the brand, there's a positive change to either society or the environment, but we need to ensure that that is always connected to what our brand has always stood for, what our brand has communicated, what the brand sort of is about. You know, it can't be completely sort of a stranger to the category that your brand is operating. Right. It helps drive noticeability. It helps therefore refresh your memory structures of the brand and the relevancy of the brand, and thereby, of course, drive your brand's growth because it will help improve your penetration for your brand. So as much as possible, we really need to sort of see and get inspired by ways in terms of how we can, you know, sort of make this connection for our brand. And as I said, these were just sort of inspirational nuggets to show you how some brands sort of communicate or what work that they do on their purpose, which I've been inspired by, and I hope you have been as well. And I just want to end, just because, you know, I am on this brand, I just have to end with this piece that we showed on Sunlight, and then we can rush off questions.
හදරහනින් පැතිනාමේ සුහදකමයි සුවදින්නේ සැම හදවත් ඥාවින්නේ මිතුදම් අප සැබැඳෙන්නේ හිරුවැදියේ විසුමසේ මනුදම් පිරි කතන්දරේ ලෙංගතු හිතෙක් වන්නේ සෙනෙහස අපගේ සැබැඳෙන්නේ ස්තුතියි ලාංකීය බැඳීම් ශක්තිමත් කරන සැලපිලි අපි කෙයා කරමු හඳුන්වා දෙන Sunlight Care.
All right. Thank you, Munazza, for a very, how do I say, an inspirational session. So whilst everybody kind of gets that across and puts in a few messages and questions of their own, I have a few things to ask you. Is your video on? We can't see you. There you go. All right. So first and foremost, we've spoken a lot about brand purpose. How does one go about defining a brand's purpose? Because in Sri Lanka, we see a lot of new upcoming brands, especially export brands. How does one go about defining their brand purpose? How do you find it?
So Kav, So I haven't been fully involved in terms of defining a brand's purpose yet, because I've sort of, got into the element of when the brand's purpose has actually been defined. So I'm not talking through experience, but I'm talking through what I've sort of read up on. And everything that I sort of read up on was in terms of really, first of all, identifying what has the brand been talking about, consistently throughout the past couple of years. What has the brand consistently been talking? Like, for example, there was a, can't remember exactly what L'Oreal says. Let me try to find that and maybe Google it before, but it all went along the lines of, first of all, identifying what has the brand been, communicating, saying, then what does the brand sort of stand for? What is our product truth of, what the brand sort of gives to the consumer, to its consumers? And then what is you to really identify what's that societal issue or what's that environmental issue that you're trying to combat with through your product, through your product truth or through what your product has been saying. So it's really important that, you first identify what we call is, basically the brand say what the brand's purpose is sort of about. And then you really need to see, okay, how can you sort of create a movement through it? Because if the people who are seeing the efforts that your brand is doing, and if they're not really motivated sort of by it to act on it, then you're not really, kind of moving the needle in terms of how your brand purpose has to operate. So I think it first involves a lot of consumer work, because I have my colleagues who are sort of connected to really defining a purpose. See the thing in terms of Unilever brands is you have sort of a guiding principle on how the brands operate, and you need to really see, does it work from a local point of view? But I think for someone who's completely doing it locally, I think you just need to first start off with identifying what the brand sort of has been communicating, what the brand has stood for, what the brand has been saying, and then seeing, okay, is there sort of an environmental or a social issue that I can tap into and that I can kind of try to own as my own sort of thing, is what I would say.
All right. I think what we're looking for is, in terms of L'Oreal, create the beauty that moves the world. Is that it?
Yes.
Right.
So, I remember when I was reading about it, it said that that wasn't as sharply defined, but how it was still able to, kind of tap in, get their products to cater what that definition is.
All right. So the next question is, now let's say when you're building a brand, right? And if you're in a local community, let's say we take Sri Lanka as an example, and there have been many trending topics like deforestation, sanitary conditions, to quality food, right? There's a lot that goes on. So can we discuss the goods and bads of jumping on to some of these trends and really creating a cause out of it? How do you bring it back to the brand? Is it advisable to do that? Is it not advisable to do that? Do you stick to the cause that you have identified? Can we discuss a little bit on that? I think Vinoli also has a question, but we'll come to that after this answer.
Okay. So I think something that sometimes some purpose-led work that we do, I think sometimes it's not always sort of, a rosy picture. Like, it can be provocative in certain instances, because not everyone will agree to, what that brand wants to say out loud. But I honestly think it depends in terms of how you have that correct balance in terms of how you sort of manage it. Of course, generally, so what we would do from our point of view, I'm talking from a general basis, is we always have to have, like, sort of, together with our teams, like a negative PR management plan sort of ready, just in case we feel that, there might be certain people, because, there are the keyboard warriors that sort of would sort of write to come to you saying, you know, why are you doing this? This is not done, etc. But if you truly believe that, look, what you're trying to do is something for the betterment of the society, yes, it might provocate some people. But if you have like a way in terms of how you're going to sort of safely manage the situation such that it doesn't completely sort of harm your brand, or a fallback plan of some sort, I think then it's basically fine to go ahead with it. But it all depends on, you know, when you're assessing the risk of when you're sort of building on your purpose work, like if because sometimes it depends, Kavi. Sometimes you might want to hold on to that work without doing it immediately. You know, it all depends on the risk assessment also in certain cases. Because sometimes it might completely, you know, seamlessly fall through in certain cases if we feel that it's too provocative, and if you don't want to really go into the conversation on where, you know, you want to create too much of drama at the time, you might sort of want to hold on to that and then build it later, or see how it goes.
So there's no real like a right or wrong answer. It needs to be played as in how it goes, is what you're saying. Yeah. All right. We know you had
that's what I feel. Depends.
Yeah, I mean, this is completely your opinion based on your experience. Vinoli, you had a question before I asked mine, I think. Vinoli? All right, until Vino comes back, I think Chamindri has two questions. The first one is, can a brand get lost in its purpose and lose out opportunities?
Good question. Because it's something that I think we constantly battle as well when we are striking in terms of our campaigns. I think this is why you sort of need to really ensure that you are, I'm really reiterating this because that is, I've been reading, and I think there was an article recently also that Byron Sharp had released on, you know, sometimes marketeers get bogged off by purpose and it's this new hype and, you know, why are you doing that? I think it's perfectly fine, you know, doing the functional need that you're doing. But I think the key thing that he had mentioned in that is that what if a brand has been functionally communicating it, and if it's connected to the functions of the brand, then you don't really sort of lose out on the opportunities because you're ensuring that, see, it's the heart of, so the purpose is basically the heart of what your brand stands for, right? So end of the day, like for example, if you take a Dove hair campaign, I mean, we are basically showing a girl sort of going out there and doing what she wants to do, but we are always including the message of saying that, look, we have some form of a, you know, a damage repair shampoo or a hair fall rescue shampoo to protect your hair. So you go out and do whatever you want to do. Yeah. So because of that, end of the day, you are still connecting it to functionally what the brand sort of stands for. Yeah. Yes, sometimes there might have been campaigns in the past or sometimes even recently where it's purely been like a communicational sort of asset that has purely been done for the time. But see, that all depends in terms of the prioritization of budgets also that you would have for the year. You know, do you have maybe X amount of budgets this year where you can do a little bit more than you would want to do and show out, you know, your purpose, say a little bit more, then by all means do so. But if not, I think it's very important that what you need to remember is end of the day, the purpose is, should be the heart of your brand. And it's basically what the brand has always stood out for. So technically, you shouldn't lose out on opportunities technically. But yes, I'm not saying that you know, I mean, people do, we would have done so. So you might have, you know, sometimes got too bogged off by an idea and then done so, but correctly speaking, you shouldn't. And that is why I think, you know, some brands do it perfectly and some still sort of are trying to get it. And I think the beauty of brands who have really sort of kind of cracked the purpose very well are brands where, at least what I feel is, Chamindri and Kavi, is, you know, brands where the target audience that you're serving your product to functionally and the target audience that you're serving your purpose to, if there's hardly a bridge between them, which is why if you see, you know, some of the oral care campaigns that were done in the past, there's hardly a bridge between the consumer we are serving and the consumer that's being offered the purpose. At the end of the day, everyone wants, you know, proper dental care. In terms of Lifebuoy campaigns that I mentioned on, you know, everyone wants a hygienic, safe environment. So, you know, you're having a really good quality product that gives that hygiene, that safety for consumers, and you're activating it by communicating about it, by having, you know, BTL activations that you're doing to sort of really, you know, bring out the concept of hygiene. For brands that have a little bit more in terms of this bridge, it's a little bit tougher. So that is where I think Sham's question comes in terms of, you know, can we get lost? Because yes, then we may tend to get lost. But, you know, it really depends on, end of the day, I mean, the more consumer work that you sort of do, and then of course, how you prioritize your budgets is how you will manage. But as long as you kind of remember that, you know, functionally, this is what my brand stands for, and I need to, and this is what I've been consistently communicating, I think we sort of try to reduce it as much as possible.
All right. So another question that Chams has put is for a brand that has built its purpose on a local context, how does it complicate if it's moving out of, like, you know, the local boundaries? I mean, basically, to rephrase the question, is the purpose dependent on the locality that you're, like, you know, in, or should it be universal? Should it be global?
Yeah. So I think if it's a global brand that has sort of operating, and if the insight that you've sort of tapped into has been a universal insight, I think you can sort of take it globally, but maybe you just might have to tweak it to a local point of view. I think the best example to give there would be the Cadburys ad that I showed you guys. I mean, I saw the same thing that was done in South Africa with, of course, South African people. Yeah, models. And then they had also done it in in Pakistan as well, if I'm not mistaken. So I mean, it's just how because it's the same sort of universal, you know, insight that there is that glass and a half in everyone. There is always that sort of, you know, spirit of generosity that you can kind of tap into, and how they have beautifully. But it's interesting because how they've cascaded it to the local nuances to show that it's still the same thing of the mom and the daughter going to a particular little standby shop, but how they've depicted it in that relevant to that local context. Then, I mean, like, you know, complete global brands, like in the case of what Unilever has, it's similar activities that's done from a local global context. So I think if you have an insight that's universal, then by all means, I think sort of communicating the same way, but of course, sticking through to local nuances is best, because then you're also being consistent in terms of that message that you're building. And that will also help you then build that global brand, because, you know, of that consistency that you are having on the brand is what I would sort of answer.
All right. So, Munz, it has been a really great discussion. And for those who joined us halfway, today we have been discussing the importance of having a brand purpose defined that drives business growth for you. So I think Munz quoted the P&G CEO or global chairman, if I'm not mistaken, where he has beautifully put it to be, if you have just a good cause and no business mindset behind it, it's just philanthropy. If you are only driving business and no sustainability or a cause, that is just versus saying heartless, yes, down as but if you have both, where what you are driving as a cause is also giving you that much required business growth, and that is the power of a brand purpose well defined. So there are many ways that you can basically mine a brand purpose. The best thing is to come up with something that is also in relation to the functional cause that you're driving as a brand, because that's the core. Because if you're selling a brand, it serves a functional purpose, and if it's really really related to that. And if it is indeed the same target audience, or at least related target audience that you're driving it to, then the business growth is bound to come, because a brand is at the end of the day a memory, and there's nothing, especially in a local context where Sri Lankans are extremely emotional, there's nothing like a brand purpose, a cause-driven campaign that really puts your brand right here and right here, right? At top of mind and top of heart as well. So at the end of the day, what we want to do is to kind of get the brand to be differentiated and get the brand to be memorable, and the brand purpose delivers. So this has been the discussion that we have been having, and thank you, Munazza, so much for inspiring us with lots of content, lots of videos. I'm sure everybody
thank you for that really great summary, Cup.
So thank you, everybody. It has been an eventful Monday evening. So F-Inspiration is simply to learn from each other. And if any of you is interested in doing a session on F-Inspiration, please do reach out to us through FB, or just if you know us personally, do reach out. We are all ears, because it's to learn from each other. And it is to keep this inspiration alive, so that Sri Lanka eventually makes it to the global arena in a big way. And people recognize Sri Lankans for the creativity and the innovativeness that we carry in terms of marketing and advertising. Thank you once again, Muns. Thank you once again for all of you for joining. And that's a wrap from us. Good night and stay safe. Thank you.
Good night. Thank you. Thanks, Cup. Thanks, guys.